Rome had never lost a war it chose to fight. Not in Greece, not in Carthage, not in Egypt. When Augustus Caesar turned south toward the Kingdom of Kush, no one in Rome questioned the outcome. You don't question Rome. The Queen of Kush had other ideas. She led her army north into Roman Egypt. She captured Roman cities. She tore down the statues of Augustus Caesar and brought his bronze head home as a trophy. She buried it beneath the steps of her victory temple, so that every person who entered walked on the emperor's face. When Rome sent an army to take it back, she fought them for 4 years. And when it was over, Rome accepted terms few would have expected. Her name was Amanirenas, Kandake of Kush, and she was missing an eye. To understand Amanirenas, you have to understand what Kush was. Not a small border kingdom, not a collection of desert tribes. Kush was one of the great civilizations of the ancient Nile. It had ruled vast stretches of the Nile Valley. Its kings had once conquered Egypt. Its people built their own pyramids that were steeper and more numerous than those at Giza. And its rulers left inscriptions carved into stone across hundreds of miles. Its capital was Meroe, a city of temples, royal palaces, and iron foundries in what is now northern Sudan. This was not a kingdom Rome should have underestimated, but Rome underestimated it anyway. What made Kush especially unusual was the place women held within its government. The title Kandake, often translated as Queen or Queen Mother, was not ceremonial. Kandakes governed. They commanded armies. They directed foreign policy. They built monuments. For long periods of Kushite history, women were not beside power. They were power. Amanirenas came to rule during the late 1st century BC. After her husband, King Taratechus, died early in the conflict with Rome, many might have expected the resistance to collapse. But instead, it changed who led it. She did not step back. She stepped forward. And here is what you need to understand before we get to the war. Amanirenas did not attack at random. She struck when Rome was at its most vulnerable. In 25 BC, the Roman governor of Egypt made a mistake. His name was Aelius Gallus. He levied taxes on territory the Kushites considered their own. And then, critically, he marched most of his army into Arabia. The Roman frontier with Kush was suddenly thin, lightly defended, and temporarily exposed. Amanirenas was watching, and she moved. Her army, which some ancient accounts estimate at 30,000 strong, marched north into Roman Egypt. They struck 3 frontier cities called Philly, Syene, and Elephantine. The Roman garrisons were overwhelmed, and the cities fell. Her army enslaved Roman inhabitants, tore down the statues of Augustus Caesar, and carried them south as trophies of war. This was not a raid, it was a declaration. For perhaps the first time, Rome had been forced to defend its own frontier in Egypt, and Amanirenas had just proven that Rome could be challenged. But one of those trophies, one specific object her army carried back from Roman Egypt, became something history has never forgotten. We will come back to it. Rome responded. Augustus sent Gaius Petronius, the new prefect of Egypt, south with approximately 10,000 soldiers. Petronius was capable, his army was disciplined, and it carried the full weight of the Roman military machine. He pushed into Kushite territory. He captured cities. He marched on Napata, one of Kush's sacred cities, and sacked it. On paper, it looked like a Roman victory, but Amanirenas was not finished. Petronius established a garrison at the fortress of Premnis and returned north, and that was his mistake. Amanirenas regrouped, her army returned, and she personally led the siege of Premnis, commanding from the field with one eye. Petronius marched south again to relieve the fortress, and the two armies faced one another. Neither side could force a decisive victory. Both had taken losses, and both were fighting hundreds of miles from home. And Amanirenas made a decision, not to keep fighting, but to negotiate. Because she understood something Rome had begun to realize. She no longer needed to defeat Rome outright. She only needed to make the war too costly to continue. Now we come back to the trophy. When her army captured the Roman frontier cities, they pulled down the statues of Augustus Caesar. Bronze statues, larger than life, the image of the most powerful man in the world. One of those statues, the head, was carried south to Meroe, and then Amanirenas did something history has never forgotten. She buried it beneath the threshold of her victory temple. Not displayed, not hidden away, but buried beneath the entrance steps, with the face pointing upward, so that every worshiper who entered stepped on the emperor's face. For decades, Augustus Caesar, whose portrait appeared on coins across the Roman world, was walked on daily by the people of a kingdom he had failed to conquer. In 1910, archaeologists uncovered that bronze head exactly where it had been placed. Today, it remains in the British Museum. Not legend, but archaeology. In 21 BC, Amanirenas sent ambassadors to meet Augustus at Samos. They carried a bundle of golden arrows, and the message was unmistakable. If Augustus wanted peace, he could have it. And if he wanted war, the arrows would fly. Augustus chose peace. He had little reason to continue an expensive campaign deep into Nubia, over territory that offered Rome limited strategic value. The treaty was extraordinary. Rome canceled the tribute. Rome withdrew from disputed territory, and Rome abandoned further expansion south. Strabo, a Greek geographer writing under Roman rule, recorded that the Kushite ambassadors obtained everything they desired from Augustus. Everything. Consider what that means. The empire that had never negotiated with anyone it considered inferior had just done exactly that. This was not the outcome Rome had expected, and after that treaty, Rome's southern frontier remained largely unchanged for nearly 3 centuries. History has been surprisingly quiet about Amanirenas, and not because the evidence is lacking, because it is not. Strabo documented the war, Cassius Dio confirmed it, Meroitic inscriptions preserve her name, and archaeology preserved the head of Augustus exactly where she placed it. Yet the story rarely received more than a few pages. Later histories focused on Rome, and over time, Amanirenas became little more than a footnote. But the record cannot hide what happened. She fought the most powerful military force in the ancient world. She did it with one eye. She did it after her husband died early in the conflict. She defended her kingdom against an empire that expected an easy victory. And she prevailed. Not by chance, not by miracle, but by calculation, by endurance, and by knowing exactly when to fight and exactly when to negotiate. That is not a footnote. That is a masterclass. The Kandakes of Kush, the women who ruled before her and after her, understood something the ancient world too often ignored. Leadership has never belonged only to those expected to lead. It belongs to those who are willing to stand. Amanirenas, Kandake of Kush, the woman who forced Rome to negotiate, the woman who buried the emperor's face beneath the floor of her temple. The Nubian world did not end with her. The woman who came next built something Rome could never conquer, and her story is next. Subscribe to her sacred legacy. There are more women like her, and the next one is already waiting.